I call to order, it is Wednesday, November 13th, 2019, a public hearing or a public meeting of the work study agenda of the Snoqualmie Valley Hospital Board. Roll call, please.
President Norris?
Here.
Vice President Herron?
Here.
Secretary Spikers?
Here.
Commissioner Carter? Here. Commissioner Pollard?
Sweet. Yeah. All right, are we ready to go in? Dr. Cup, the floor?
Can you just see okay? Is the glare? So my hope had been that we would have had the first draft of the agreement in hand longer than just a few days, and so that we could really dive deeply into it. But so that'll have to be the next time we're together, unless something comes up that we feel like we need to gather everybody earlier.
Will we get a copy of that or look at it?
As we get, we want to go through first, make sure that it complies with all the things that we wanted on there first.
Will we get it?
Before the meeting?
Yeah,
Yes.
like a week before the meeting?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the next time we get together, we're
Okay.
gonna dive down into that.
Okay.
I wanna put it in your hands when it feels like it's pretty close to being ready to
Okay.
decide on. And then I need to have the week so that really,
Sure.
we all can
Would
really
it be
walk in and have a
possible
meeting
to look at the
conversation.
financial aspects in finance meeting? Okay.
Yeah.
The next finance
Next
meeting?
one,
I will do a little bit tonight, so after tonight, maybe you can say what you feel like is left.
Okay.
There will be some left, just some
Until December.
thoughts around what's left.
Yeah.
December
Have-
2nd or 3rd?
Third.
Yeah, that's the
We
next
should
meeting.
maybe some numbers
Okay.
behind it by Disney.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, this is what I've already told you, is that, we thought we would have it 2 weeks ago, and it didn't come out of their attorney's office any faster. And so, but again, Brian will be here at the December work study. It is a longer affiliation work study, so that we really can dive in, because that'll be the time we wanna get down really, sleeves rolled up all the way up into our elbows in the work. And then, we're gathering as a group over Lake and us gathering next week, the 21st.
Now, when you say us, is it just executive, the
Yes,
guys?
Steve and I and Brian and their leadership team, yeah, it's the group that comes together to exchange thoughts and wrestle through everything. So I thought that there was value in making sure that we all had the same alignment around the management services agreement, because I really feel like we spent so much time digging into what a lease operating agreement was, because it was unique and trying to work through it, and now we're walking away from that and coming into this new thought. And just to make sure that we all really are on the same alignment page around what a management services agreement is, because I think that's gonna be so foundational as we go into looking at the document and what the exchanges are. So this was how we thought was a straightforward way of writing it, that the district is hiring Overlake to come in and provide a service, and it's management services as well as bringing in new services. That's what they're being hired to do, so we're purchasing a service from them. And tied to that is an incentive risk that's attached to it for them, so they can make more, they can make less, but it's still a service that we purchase from them, which is kind of where we have to change our mindset, because under that operating lease agreement, we kind of we were in a position to be able to expect an investment from them, an exchange of money for something. But now that's not so much the scenario that we're under.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I think we've got some, as we move forward, I think we've got some places where we can put some investments from them in here. But again, just to have us all on the same footing.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, the preliminary was this operating, now we changed the hiring.
Yes.
When did
Yes.
that change?
Yes.
Yeah.
When did that change?
That was last meeting, we talked about it in the
Yeah, I
meeting, and the
remember
meeting
that's what
before.
one of Commissioner's Pollard's question was, because it was from leasing to hiring now.
Correct.
Correct. Do you remember that display where we talked about leaving the $1.2 million on the table? And so we had the display that kind of had the moving pieces and the arrows.
Yes.
It was, as we put all of that together, that is what positioned us to need to move from the lease operating agreement
To the hiring model.
to the, to the management
Because
services
we
model.
discarded information from Virginia Mason because that was the original proposal, was hiring management services rather than leasing.
Yes, you are correct. That was the only scenario that Virginia Mason would entertain as a
Right.
lease operating. And that is the same scenario that they have going on over at Yakima, EM there.
What made us not consider that when they were all three of Overlay, UW, and Virginia Mason were still in the mix, all three of them, and we did not, go for, what made us decide not to go for Virginia Mason when now we are going with Overlay on the same
The
principle?
lease operating.
Yeah, no, the management services.
Right, but your question is about why did we make a
Yeah, why
decision
did
to
you
depart
not at the
Virginia
time,
Mason?
yes.
UW was even more so in that
Yeah.
position of not
There was a-
wanting to do
yeah,
it. They
I
were
understand that.
actually discouraging of it.
Yeah.
For the Virginia Mason piece was, they were very clear that they could not go very far with us. So they could offer, what they had on offer was kind of a management in a toolbox, but not really to bring services in. They were not interested in extending services out here. They would provide staff for, and they've actually started a business line around that, where they extend a staff member out, kind of to manage and to
So
manage.
subsidize that salary, that person to
That's
do
what
it?
you're purchasing. You're
Yeah,
purchasing
yeah.
somebody who represents the VM way. Yeah, but they were not interested in bringing services out.
Okay.
So, but your brain is correct. That was the column that VM occupied when we were looking at the three side by side. This one, I'm trying
go
not
ahead.
to hurry through.
I'm fine.
I also wanted to confirm what I thought were key messages that you guys gave last month when we talked about this. So the key messages that I heard was to ensure priority for local residents. And so next slide, I've got to display some information on that. I also was hearing, and so again, this is an opportunity for correction is what it is. That the agreement has some real clarity around how does this building get maintained, how do we keep it operating to standard, and that a very obvious role for the superintendent to have access for regular monitoring. And then I think what's not written there, but what I heard David say was, a clear guideline of what needs to be done and implications of if it's not done.
Right.
Because it's the district's asset to be protected. And that there's a lot of clarity around a path towards purchase, and that path is encouraged, that the threshold is low for getting to a purchase, even though that's not an essential element of a management services agreement, that it's clear that that's the path. There, even if it's not a destination, that it's a path of how it's possible to get there.
Couldn't they, with a management agreement, also have a option agreement attached to the management agreement, and then that's where we bring in money?
Option.
kind of option?
Maybe it's an option.
Yeah,
Option of purchase.
Yeah, so our thoughts right now, and again, we need to spend some more time around this, but we set it up as a right of first refusal. That way when the district says, we now need to move this forward towards purchase, and so the district says, we want to sell, Overlay, you have right of first refusal. If you don't exercise your right of first refusal, then we are gonna offer it up to somebody else.
I think I'd like to also see that we involve the community,
I agree.
as well, because it doesn't seem like the district, which is the community at large, at large, doesn't seem to have any say on any of this. which is really important, that we need to get our residents of our district, our, people who are our,
Involved. Yes.
our voters to be involved, to be part of this, there should be one of them at least in the negotiation. I don't know, that was just my thought, I don't know. Maybe not, but to get them involved in the process as well.
I thought we were going to do that
Yeah,
at some point.
Well, yeah, which point, and I'm not sure I have the idea of the vision that you have, so I was gonna ask from that
The
question.
community, we need to get their input, their feedback as well, if we were to move forward in this,
For the sale,
for the sale.
For a
Whatever,
sale.
even not for the sale, but to know what is happening, what is going on.
I think we're talking in general, because they
Right.
really own it, I mean, it
Yeah.
belongs to the community, so I think what Emma's saying is, we need to get the word out that we're having
Yes.
talks, and that we say the information correctly, and that we make sure they know what's happening, correct, Emma?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
so now that's back to what Dave was saying about the town hall meetings.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
had a couple of that. I thought we were gonna do 2 of those.
Yeah.
And,
It's not, it hasn't.
we
been
haven't
lost
done any.
Because we needed something to talk
Oh,
about.
right.
Talk about, yes.
That's why I said, I think we
Yeah.
have them, we're just behind in progress we're making right now because we switched gears to the management agreement. So we're not quite, I
We're
think
not-
after December, we should probably have one in January.
Yeah, we wanted to have the definitive agreement really nicely fleshed out so that we would know what we were talking about, so we weren't going to town hall meetings and presenting with, we think, well, maybe, it could be, but at least with a plan as we see it at the moment, and then be able to hear feedback, but not when we've already inked the deal, because then we can't change.
Right, and then just to make sure that the public does have, if there's something that is really we missed, and the public does wish to
Mhm.
make a big comment about something, I don't know how many people show up to the town meetings, but you never know. And, it'd be nice to be able to get the public a chance to, everybody I've talked to, it's a win-win for the community at this point, but, it's up to.
But we wanna make sure there's clarity out there, what that means, why it's a win-win, what are we gonna win from it, and that we're not selling it or getting rid of it, but it's still here in the community, and how we're gonna use it, and how we're gonna partner with it. Especially even the board, how is the board gonna partner with the community and partner with it?
Is that is the town hall feel like the right solution? Is it some other media messaging?
I think personally, it's gonna take some of both.
Yeah.
When we do our community assessments, you don't get a huge amount of turnout. So it's kind of like that community assessment, how are we gonna get them together? Or how are we gonna present to them, and how are they gonna hear? How are we gonna make it loud enough and clear enough that they hear it and they understand it? I mean, we're sometimes having a hard time understanding it.
But, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not, because that's where I'm wanting to see what is, as the
One
representatives.
of the things I thought would also for us to be able to reach out and get them engaged is to hold
Yes.
our meetings, maybe one in Falls City, one in Carnation, so that they have some idea what's happening in our hospital, and then here, we simply, so that way we can generate more enthusiasm from those communities, that we are reaching out to them, and we're bringing in the information to them, because it's very difficult to really, entice them to come for some reason, but maybe now we could do it where we go to them and bring the presentation to them once everything is
And you're still referencing the town hall meeting
right,
concept.
yeah, and do that in several different communities,
Yeah.
districts.
When we had initially laid out the plans, and this was months ago, so it was back when we were thinking of a different time
One,
frame.
maybe 2.
I think we had landed on one or two, and the two concept was one here and one down in the lower valley.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I'd like Falls City, but I don't know if the library's big enough.
Is that
The church there?
The church
opened
does,
their
yeah.
doors to us before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty good size.
So the-
What about the Carnation too?
And then the Carnation Seniors and.
Yeah.
That
I
would
think
be-
that, you know, we need to really reach out to other districts besides Snoqualmie, seems like
I've
we're
done-
just
yeah.
saturating Snoqualmie, we have other districts there that need to be attended to as well.
you know.
Yeah, so we had the town hall concept, on the timeline.
Okay.
But when we do, what can we actually say? We
It
just
excites them.
synthesize, we're not giving them a copy of the definitive, the proposed
No, no,
agreement,
no.
right?
No, we don't.
We just, here's the bullet points
Yeah.
that are most important that we feel are connected to
Yeah,
your
I think
interests.
as we get close to that time, we'll wanna put ourselves in their shoes and say what's of interest for them to hear about. Like Daryl was saying, that we're not giving away the farm,
That's right.
that we're actually keeping it, but the intentions are.
Maybe instead of
Make
just
it
a
a
successful farm,
Yeah.
maybe instead of town hall, how about a community forum? That way we can ask them questions, or we can find out from them what it is that they needed, you know, what information do they need. More of a forum,
Oh, it would be nice to have
convener.
these 3 or 4 service lines that we've,
Identify.
yeah, that we started with this last year and a half or two. To say, here's what's changed for our, bottom line. And just to let you know, we're not sinking, okay? We're looking at trying to get better services and more services for people. You know, that was the reason why we're doing this, not because we're selling the farm and have to. I think that would be really helpful as an introduction, Steve.
Clarity of the line.
It's not, the issue for our constituents is our long-term debt. And that's really the question, whether we're sinking or not. How are we paying our long-term debt? That's the big
And
question.
that's why I think it'd be a good,
Not so much about whether
the
we're
town hall to
sinking.
be able to have
How do we pay
Make
our
our money.
information.
How do we make our money with
as a
25
10-minute
beds?
kind of prelude to the,
Sure.
you know, that showing the graph of our debt going down and when these could be refinanced and maybe or something.
The
Something like that.
message has to be very clear, this isn't intended as a rescue mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, that's
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going down, we have long-term planning and goals for our community. We want to put back money to some outreach programs that are needed in town, based on our community census.
And community
and
assessment.
where, you know, so this is what we're supposed to be doing. We finally are able to do this after so many years. You had to really have some foresight 10 years ago.
To see what's happening.
Yeah.
Hey, Emma, what's the difference in your mind between a town hall and a community forum?
Forum, you ask questions, you put them in a group, and they you know, talk about some issues, and then they have a moderator that would, you know, listen and jot down their.
Kind of like the network,
Kinda
when they
like,
have
yeah.
their key
That's what I
leaders.
did, I wanted to make sure
That's the
that those are
involvement,
so
right.
often used to describe the same thing, I just wanted to know how you saw them as different, so, okay.
Yeah, they put, they separate them several different groups, and they all have questions they needed to address, and,
And force them to make questions.
yeah, that's what it is. It's good to hear what they have, what questions they have in their mind, rather than, you know, as
And the
always
more
do,
questions, the
the
better.
You could get more questions that way if you had more than 5 people. But
We'll offer
Yeah,
Each
pizza.
of you would host one table.
Yeah.
Five
Put a
tables.
pizza for them.
Yes.
Food always brings them in.
You know, too, there are groups like this community network. If we go out and reach out to them and say, this is what's going on, this is what we'd like to talk about, can you help us engage? Kind of reach out where our feelers are and who we can talk to.
Yeah.
You got community neighborhoods that have a community club or something, you can go there, just wherever the bodies of people are.
Or could we seek a half an hour on existing agendas, like when the community network has their meetings, or the Chamber of Commerce has their meetings?
Yes, yeah.
Say we'd like to borrow half an hour or something.
We're not gonna borrow it, we're gonna take it. With that
Anyways,
purchase.
Mr.
Again,
Chairman.
oh, I'm sorry, I was
No,
talking
no,
about me.
it's okay, I'm just
Um,
making comment.
Valuable for us to be just a little further along, not
Yes.
a lot, just a little
Yeah.
further along, and then having really messages so that we aren't
Mhm.
recreating the conversation at each of these different events. So that
Mhm.
it is the same message, the same intention, we have real clear alignment around it.
And to as a board, we have to clearly understand what it's gonna look like, and right now, I'm not sure we all know exactly.
Which is what I wanted to accomplish tonight.
Yeah.
And we're not helping you. That's okay,
No.
this is your time and this is really, cause I don't know where we should camp and spend extra time. So I wanna respond to you.
Thank
All right.
you.
The last one here, David, is where I thought we captured a thought last time about we want a longer term lease, but if it's shorter, that there needs to be, that's the place for seed money also to come in.
Yeah.
Kind of a purchasing a shorter term as opposed
Right,
to the
and
longer
that's
term.
my
which we
option
want.
kind of thing, that in my mind, it's not really an option, but it's contractual obligation
If you're
in
gonna
this
do a
case.
shorter term,
Yeah.
it's gonna
Yeah.
cost them,
And that way they pay for it, if they want a short term, if they want a longer term, then.
yeah.
And those look different, and they all feel different, even in how they care for the facility and what goes on.
And I assume that the entire agreement is gonna be encompassed on, absolutely being able to meet our, bondholder covenants.
Oh, yeah, we have to
Entire
factor it.
process,
And every-
no matter
and
what.
factor
Everybody
in.
in the room is super sensitive to that.
Yeah.
It's one of the first
I mean,
questions that
obviously,
comes up.
that's,
regularly.
it's not on your bullet point, but that's number one, I would think.
This is just
Yeah,
what I took out of
that's
our
true.
last
Yeah.
meeting, yeah. Go on. So this is the zip code information, so the very first bullet point, so just assuring that we were serving the needs of our local residents. So the first column is this year, I pulled these measures on November the 1st. So for this year, up through November 1st, these are the number of admissions that we had from the different cities within the district. And then there's the line that's called immediate surrounding, and so that is Issaquah, Sammamish,
Okay.
Maple Valley, just so the communities, Duval, they're right around the periphery. And then everything else is just in an other category. So this year, 42% of our admissions have been from district zip codes. When you add in those surrounding communities, that's 63%. The one thing that's not represented here, because I just don't have a way of representing it, is we have quite a number of folks who are here because they chose to be here because their children live in the community. So the patient may be from Arlington, California. We kind of have from all over, but the reason they're here is because their children are district residents,
Right.
but I don't have their
Be nice to
family.
have like a
I don't have
connected.
that. I don't
Yeah,
have
I
that
know, yeah.
spot in the registration.
Is that
screens.
high, you think, or is it just somewhere in the?
It is, it's not high, but it exists.
Anecdotally, it exists.
Yeah.
You know,
No, not-
sometimes, not
Probably,
all.
every 2 months, we have an admission of somebody. The reason for doing it is because of the proximity to their kids.
Okay, so I'd like to correct an error, and that would be Preston.
Yeah.
Because I have been here,
These are inpatient admissions.
oh, so
Inpatient.
it's not, it doesn't count the ER,
No,
No,
these are just
no,
just
this is
inpatient.
inpatient.
just
Sorry,
inpatient. How about it, see it?
sorry.
No? No, I just
So we have
see it.
100 outside of the local surrounding area. Like Evergreen, Shipton, Sunday is from Boston.
Yeah.
That's what we
And
got.
then of that 100, some of them could be connected.
Correct. And I don't have that much.
So it could be at least, it could be another 10%, it could be 5%. and-
It's in that range. Yeah.
Okay.
And I just paired it with last year's numbers so that it was, most of them are actually growing for local representation.
they look like
But
it.
at least they're not dramatically different. So this is a pretty solid.
Yeah, that is good, for 30, 42 local, and if you had the connected to it, it might be 50/50 local versus.
No. I am so
This-
glad, may I interrupt? I am so glad that you are here, Commissioner
Oh,
Fuller.
thank you.
You're
I
okay?
noticed that when I came in, the posting on the board says nothing about this meeting.
Nothing, yeah.
We
Well, come
were-
sit down.
we waited, we did wait a few extra minutes.
Thank you very much, I'm sorry I'm late.
Don't apologize, you're here now. We're happy to have you.
Did this start to get at the questions about?
Yeah, I was gonna
looking
make
at-
it, yeah, so I see North Bend seems to have the highest inpatient. That's because they do have, most of the North Bend and the surrounding areas are pretty high in terms of inpatient admissions, because they have a lot of
I'll treat.
skilled nursing facilities.
In North Bend?
Yeah, that's North Bend has one, we don't have one here in Snoqualmie. So many of them come, yeah, and then, of course, Issaquah has quite a few
They have a couple, yeah.
retirement and all the others, yeah, Maple Valley, and the adult family homes as well, so that's why you do get that. That's a good rational visit to what that Snoqualmie does have inpatient as well. We do have a number of retirees in our community, it's a mixed population, so we do have quite a.
You know, when you look at the population information from Snoqualmie,
Mhm.
just limited to Snoqualmie,
Mhm.
the average age in Snoqualmie is definitely growing.
Growing.
Yeah, it's growing, aging, I probably say.
Yeah, right.
And it's, they say it's because 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it really was a bedroom community, and now since then, a lot of those folks have retired, they've aged in place, and many parents are moving in.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of multi-generational families here.
Most of them are downtown Lower Snoqualmie Valley, that's what they, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now back to the, comparing the lease operating agreement, which is in the middle, and the management affiliation on the right side. So again, just to kind of dive down deeper, you know, back to that concept we started out with, was just kind of aligning around the difference and getting our brains wrapped around the new item. So just line by line, the owner of the real assets, so the owner of the property and the building, equipment and stuff that's a real asset remains the hospital district.
For the community.
So in the management affiliation. The two lines down, then the business owner. So, and what I mean by that is who receives dollars from the operations, who is the recipient. So the public hospital district is the recipient under the management services agreement. So checks will be addressed to King County Public Hospital District number 4. All contracts are under the name King County Public Hospital District number 4.
Who administers the contracts?
They will. That'll be part of what is included in the management services agreement, is that they'll administer it under the PhD's name.
Not gonna
Management.
give them a checkbook or anything
Not that.
No,
You're in
they
fine
get a-
form this evening, Commissioner.
No, they get a budget, they get a budget to work in. They have to pay the bills, but they get a budget. So that is kind of actually the question you're asking, which is like management decisions. That's part of that, you know, so hiring and firing of staff and policies and procedures that you put in place. And, so that's part of the management services agreement. That's what you're hiring, is that management. The oversight of the agreement, the document.
Yeah.
You know, we've always said that would be an affiliation, some gathering, some affiliation gathering. And under the lease operating agreement, that was gonna be a committee. But under this management agreement, it actually is a board of its own. So it's
Just
got
for clarity for
representation.
Commissioner Pollard, because he's just coming in. Last time we had this meeting, his question was management services versus leasing agreements. So Are you clear where we are right now?
No, but let's not waste time.
Oh, okay.
I'll catch up eventually, so just go right ahead.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
good, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so an affiliation board is a clear part is, and the next slide we're gonna talk, has a listing of the board, powers, responsibilities, work, things that they're responsible for,
Okay.
will be on the next slide. The employer, will be the district under the management services agreement. So again, the business owner is the district, they're the employer of record. All transactions will have the district's name, which was the question David had asked, contracts and what have you, the district will be there. And then funds flow, and again, this is a summary document, and we're gonna, later on, just a few more slides, we're gonna talk about the funds flow. So that'll be another place that we pause. But just to see it at a higher level, there will be some funds that come from overlay to the public hospital district as part of management services agreement, and that is, some investments that they make, some capital investment, and any losses, they incur 50% responsibility for making up those losses.
Okay,
So
so
we have a display.
they are going to put some money in upfront, you're saying, to like recruiting new staff
Yeah,
or something, or?
and I'm not, it's the upfront part, so they will provide capital investment for things that they feel like needs to have a capital investment, and it might be recruiting. It might be that they say, one of the things we need to do is recruit for
XYZ service.
XYZ service, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, they would put the funds in for the recruitment as a capital investment, yes. So that is part of their plan, they say that they know that's part of getting to where we need to be.
Because that can be expensive,
Mhm.
you have to wait.
Yeah.
Question?
They may have something in mind. though.
Question here?
Yeah, I'd just like to know what upfront money they're going to provide to reduce our incredible indebtedness.
This is one of the things we're trying to wrap our alignment around, is that we're hiring them, the district is hiring them to actually provide a service, a management service, so there would not be an investment from overlay for that, with the exception of, if they want to do a short-term lease, they're gonna need to purchase the right to do a shorter-term lease. That would be an upfront money.
What's the difference between a short-term lease and a regular
Like 5
lease?
years would be short-term, and a longer term would be 10 or 15 or 20 years. And that answer I just gave you is just arbitrarily kind of what we've all tended to kind of gravitate around in conversation, so it's not set in stone, it can move around.
Question, since they're going to be the management services of this hospital, the employer of SVH staff would be the district, which is us.
Mhm.
But they are the management, they're doing all the operations as well, and, they have to be able to monitor all of that activity. The district can't, so it's kind of, I don't know,
Trying to see
convoluted
it.
for me. I don't see that, because that's putting us in a position where we need to manage them, because they are our employer. You
So
follow?
the
When you
district-
say management services, they have to manage the employer, not the district, not us. And if there's any scenario out there, and we don't know, because we're not there on a day-to-day to manage the employer, the employees, that makes it very difficult.
You're hiring them to
Right, to do
manage
that.
all of the employees.
But they are the employees of the district.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes, you're hiring somebody to
I
come in
understand, yeah.
and do the management.
Because we're looking at.
Which is, actually, you brought up the Virginia Mason, is exactly the way it happens at Virginia Mason in Yakima, is that the VM representatives there are managing the employees of the Yakima
Well, if there are some critical situations that comes up, the liability will be on us. The onus is on the district, not on them as the management services.
Oh, they will have responsibilities and.
I just wanna, I
Yeah,
need to
they'll
be
have
clear on
liability.
this,
No,
because I
you're-
have some doubts in what, how we can.
These are good things to bring up
Right,
because we
I
need
need
to
to know those
have the
things.
confidence.
Okay.
Yes,
So-
absolutely.
So, adding on to that, worst case scenario, if something awful happens, will the district be sued as well as the overlay be sued? Who's got the skin in that people are gonna go after? Is it gonna be,
Both.
Mhm.
that's unsettling.
That is.
You did that, you said the scenario is something
We have
horrible
a big
happens.
liability insurance.
I did say,
You
something
said something
horrible.
horrible
Yeah.
happens,
Yeah.
when something horrible happens, everybody involved is gonna get named.
Okay.
That's
So-
pretty typical.
Well, I know, we are hearing that with the stuff that Gary's
Yeah, we
doing.
don't-
Yeah.
Any
Yeah, yeah.
time there's a
It's
traffic
convoluted.
accident and a city's involved, then,
The honest answer is,
Yes.
it doesn't matter which of these two arrangements, if something horrible happens,
we're all
the
in.
district will, because you're the owner of the building.
The more control you exert over the management company, the more you tend to be responsible.
So the less you get involved,
Mm-hmm.
the less responsible you are,
It's called
and the more
outbound
responsible they
providers.
will be.
Ultimately, they go with the
Yeah.
deep pockets there. And if you don't have the deep pockets, they go to overlay.
Okay.
That's probably
Yes.
gonna have some items under that as to who has sole responsibility under certain circumstances and who does not, to maybe distance ourselves.
And the variety of insurance, the depth control.
Yeah.
that we
Yes.
have,
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be plenty of exposure to go around. What you want to do is try and shift your exposure.
Right.
Yeah.
Just
To
minimum.
somebody else,
Contractually,
yeah.
or through mitigation, or through insurance. And they're gonna be on the same sheet of music, they're gonna have the same concerns. You know, how do we make sure that we try to mitigate it? How do we insure it? And how do we make sure that we shift whatever burden's appropriate?
Can that be part of the agreement?
Absolutely.
And that is, that we essentially turn the liability over to them for any of the operations of the hospital.
That's gonna be hard to do when,
Yeah,
Yeah.
when they're
and-
responsible to us.
When you're an owner, it's gonna be tough to
Yeah,
completely
and
transfer
when-
that risk and exposure,
Yeah.
but you can do it through a contractual relationship that says, we want you to pay our insurance premiums, or we
Yeah.
want you to carry this
Yeah.
exposure, or we want you to name us as an additional named
Yeah.
insured. So that is gonna be a discussion, I'm sure, when
Yeah.
Dr. Wyckoff and Steve and their council
Yeah.
get to the table on that. That'll be an issue.
On line number 2 for branding, is it new that we're gonna retain some of our branding? What's the breakdown here? What's the thinking about how to do that?
Because in the management affiliation, that we retain SVH branding because SVH is the business owner. What does that look like?
So 1.2
How
million or
much is
something
it?
difference?
Yes.
Yeah, the
Whose
one
name is
point
on the
two.
Parkway sign?
what did you
I don't have an
We don't
answer.
have- yeah.
I don't have an answer
Sorry?
for
What
you.
did you ask?
Oh, I said whose name is up on the Parkway sign? Is it, no, it's an honest question.
But Ed is a legitimate
You know,
question, yeah.
then we started down this path because we knew that we needed to leverage a
Right.
great
That's right.
name.
I would, a name
It was
everybody recognizes.
problematic
Yeah.
with the Astria because they weren't bringing a good name with them.
They weren't doing much.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
they did
that's
just
why I
that.
wanna make
Just
sure
leave it
that
at
we're-
that.
Make sure that we're taking advantage of the overlay brand.
Right, at the
Yeah.
same time, under management services, we were hiring them to come in, so I think it just kind of opens up the conversation again, that it doesn't have full answers yet. We're just really
Okay.
gonna have to figure out what is the right thing to do, and Commissioner Pollard's brought it up several times, we have a certain amount of investment in the asset that is a sign, that are signs,
It's
you know,
probably
so how
worth
is it that we?
$50,000, that sign, and then if we have to
Pretty-
store it,
Right,
especially for a short-term lease, that's
I don't
expensive.
think
Just
it's
put
gonna be-
overlay
And.
serving, and then our sign below.
I'm sure there are
I would
It's
options.
the
keep
quality
this-
popular.
I would keep the sign and underneath say affiliation with overlay or something like that. And by the way, Astria was mentioned, flagship of Astria, you may have misread, declaring bankruptcy.
Oh, yeah, I have read that, yeah.
I thought
Last
they
May.
just came out of bankruptcy. I read something.
They're probably in chapter
Yeah.
11 or something,
Kaiser.
the organization.
50.
13.
13.
And
13.
Kaiser Permanente
That'll be
CEO
May
passed
14th.
away, died in his sleep.
Who?
The Kaiser Permanente CEO.
That's okay.
Died in his sleep, he was only 60 years old, anyway.
Yeah.
Looking for a new
Announcement
CEO.
today.
It's terrible.
Let's see, where were we? Certificate of need is not necessary for a management services agreement. A management affiliation agreement does not require a certificate of need. So just as a reminder, that's the additional 12 to 15 months
Yeah, that's-
certificate of need process. So that's not required for the management agreement.
Is there the certificate of need requirement, does that vary in terms of the lease length?
It doesn't.
No.
I'm gonna answer you differently. Lease will always require
Yeah.
a certificate of need. The management
Management
agreement does
agreement
not.
doesn't matter how long it is.
That's correct. They both require notification to the Attorney General, which is not an onerous process and doesn't add a lot of time. Just that they both will, because this will be an after January 1st event. Is the
They're
way
supposed to
that's
respond within
works.
30 days, the Attorney General's office is.
Mhm.
They're asking additional questions within that time period. We're probably gonna fall under that. of course, 'cause it's
We've
gonna
nailed
be
them down.
Post-January, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, will there need to be a trust fund? Yes, in both scenarios, there needs to be a trust fund, and that trust fund will be owned by the district. More details to come on that.
With conditions if they sell it,
Yes,
if they invest, and
all those things, yeah, all those things we've talked about.
Could there be an upfront deposit and connect that to performance somehow?
An upfront,
I'd like to see, some kind of advance investment.
Well, their payments are-
Subject to performance or something.
their payments are
If they
gonna
don't
be based
perform
on-
adequately, we get to keep.
correct, because if they don't perform well, they
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
incur part of that, they have to fund the losses.
Yeah.
They have to
Yeah,
fund a
that's-
portion of the losses, 50%. So
To
their
keep-
performance from day one
To keep
is
percent
50%.
of the loss, but there's no upfront deposit or investment where.
Well, they-
Only in the scenario of a shorter rather than a
Yeah.
longer term.
What they will be able to, what it will guarantee the district is that all of our bonds and our tax levies get paid, basically. We can't violate the conditions of the bond companies.
I was thinking of a performance bond or some kind of performance guarantee, but anyhow.
I think they're actually getting that in not even a roundabout way, a pretty direct way. That says if you don't perform, there's a cost to that, an
Yeah.
immediate cost. Anything on this side? This is the comparison between the description of that affiliation board, that will really be what brings together and provides that oversight opportunity. Emma, this is where you were, the path you were going down of how does a district actually continue to be responsible when they're not doing the managing? And it's through that affiliation board, because that's where all the reporting happens. So the reporting on the performance and all the activities within the business come in. And so I think, again, that lands in the definitive agreement, that we make it, we even outline a minimum set of expectations of reporting
So
that
who is
happens
on the
out of the
affiliation board? You
business.
said PhD reps plus OH, how many per?
At the moment to be determined.
Oh, I see, okay.
But, part of the issue is we have to be cautious about the Open Public Meetings Act, so it can't be more than 2 commissioners.
Right.
Yeah,
But it could be 2 commissioners plus a representative.
yeah, we
You
want
know,
to
the
have some
superintendent.
balancing act there. We
And
don't want-
as
okay.
far as, let's say they wanted to put 4 on the board and we can only put 2, we could actually provide,
A liaison.
no. You
Yeah,
could
bylaws
provide,
that would-
voting shares would be like,
Oh, I see, yeah.
twice as, whatever.
We can
You
put
could-
whatever we can
At
think
weight,
about,
You
yeah.
could do
To make
anything
it-
like that to make it
it-
where we
Or
still.
Fair and
require a
balanced.
supermajority so that those 2 individuals
But
March,
but,
yeah.
percentage-wise, vote would be,
So
okay.
that's, I mentioned that before,
Yeah,
is that as long as you're on that trail.
Could be commissioners change, in other words, not lock it into certain names, two names, but just say there'll be two representatives
Yeah,
of the
probably
hospital
that would be-
district.
And then you could rotate them, I don't.
Rotate just in case.
I know one thing that is important to overlook, and I think that it should be on both, for both groups, is that names are put forth, and then the other side does an approval.
Oh,
So
I see.
Overlake would say, here's the 3 representatives that we want to have, and you all would agree, you would have
Or
to
vice
agree that
versa.
those are,
That those
and
are the
vice
people we
versa.
want.
Or vice versa,
So,
okay, to be fair.
yeah, and so it's a fairness, but it would make it hard to kind of have an at-large position if you had to go through that approval process. But that is one
makes
thing that
sense,
is
yeah.
important to them. Again, just in time, this, because you've seen this before, the affiliation board is really where the things that the district leadership is obligated to do under statute. You know, a lot of it gets executed right there because the strategic plan, the community health needs assessment, all of those things happen through that board. The medical staff approval would need to go through there too. So just to not lose
Maybe
sight
they
that
won't
it
be
has
there all
things
night
to do.
signing initials on pages.
All right.
Yeah.
The other thing is the affiliation board is so there's the chief administrative officer, the hospital's chief administrative officer, and then the district superintendent. So this would be a scenario where it's very likely that those roles will not live in the same person. Because the
You're talking about
superintendent,
the superintendent.
yeah, because the superintendent really needs to represent the district and all the district's interests and be kind of the outsider who's the watchdog of the asset. Whereas the chief administrative officer is the person who is leading the business operations, of the hospital and clinic service.
Sounds like you wouldn't have to have a full-time superintendent.
Agreed.
Yeah, I know.
What did you say, Dave?
Wouldn't have to have a full-time.
We don't need to have a full-time, yeah. Let's save some.
Agreed, and one of the things that we're putting together, Steve's really done a lot of this work, is a job description, a skill set, and really how much work is there, how much of an FTE is necessary. And we are all in agreement, it will not need to be a full FTE.
Are they gonna come up with job descriptions?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
he's
what
got
we're
it,
working
he's got it
on.
almost finished.
Now,
Questions there? Things that feel unclear? And we can flush, I'm sure we'll be fleshing this out more, and there'll be things like,
Yeah.
oh, what about,
Yeah.
we need to add it on to here.
And we'll go home in our sleep and think of something and wanna call you.
Please, drop an email, I mean, when you send notes or say something in conversations, we grab it, we just have lists of things to make sure that we come back to, and is that represented, was it thought about? Are you ready to go to funds flow? Because you've got several questions. All right, so,
Okay.
I'm gonna tease it up, and then Steve's done a lot of the work, so I'll be ready to jump in and answer
Okay.
some questions too. But this, I think, is really an important place to camp out so that we don't get caught in dollars and actually look at concepts. So just to walk you through, the intention, I'm just gonna, the intention is right here. It is the middle one, is to say, let's just look at the net income from operations. Because the district has sources of revenue from operations and sources and tax dollars. And everybody is in agreement, take the tax dollars off of the table. It's just about operations. So this is the starting place, and the way you get there to that starting place is you take the audited change in that position, what happens at the end of the year, and get rid of the taxes. And so the LTGO taxes came in, and a portion of them have already gone to satisfy LTGO obligations, and then there's this extra that we have. that's
300 to
the
600
excess.
grand.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
that,
where
right,
we're at.
and that comes out of the calculation,
Mhm.
so that's not there.
That's hardly enough to even pay for salaries of the district needs right now. at 600,000, I would imagine. Well,
mean,
it's,
district?
well,
You're
you take
taking
that 600,000 that we have in addition, that we paid our LTGO, $600,000 remaining, that we all wanna put back into the community, but we can't.
Yes.
Because we gotta pay everybody's salaries and keep
Yeah,
this
that's what
running.
we need to.
Right. The excess.
core of
Yeah.
who's keeping
Yeah.
the superintendent and whoever's supporting the superintendent, that's what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, I think the numbers actually look more favorable when we get to that, so. But
Because
it's
I
not.
thought it was like a 500,000, now we've got another half position.
Yeah, it won't, the
It's
first year
outrageous.
will not be rolling in the dough.
No, yeah. it won't.
Absolutely not. It's
We
gonna
haven't
take a
been,
while.
we haven't been rolling in the dough
for a long time.
It won't feel a lot different.
Yeah.
So then from that, then there will have been some capital investments that Overlake made. Now, what we just started talking about that is because they invested to do a recruitment. They invested to put in an additional procedural room. They invested to do mammography. They invested to do something,
Will they
whatever
put
that is.
in writing that they will have X amount of dollars available for capital investment in the first 2 years?
I think the answer is
No.
yeah, no, but yes.
Nobody.
No, in that not a commitment to a certain dollar, but a commitment to what's needed.
No, it
And so
doesn't.
I think that's one of the places where we have to add some more
Wishy-washy.
detail.
And I think
just
we
don't
ought to
have an
know
answer,
what-
but I think it's a
yeah.
space that needs
Because they don't know what's
conversation.
needed for another year.
Right.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is,
Anticipated.
they don't have to tell us what they're going to invest in, but they're going to invest, so let's have a certain amount of money available.
So I will tell you that as they kind of generated this and all
That's
gave us an
amazing.
example. The example that they gave us, that they said, here, let's work with these numbers, and this is, and they were very clear to say, we're not promising anything.
Yeah.
But they didn't put $100,000, they put $500,000 on the line of capital investments. So that at least told me that they aren't afraid to put that number down.
And they're serious about doing something
They
that
do.
will help us.
They just wanted to make it really clear, we are not at a point of promising any numbers yet, but they used for an example a number that, and they were using it in a display, and it's the display you're gonna see in just a minute, in a display that we needed to do a reality check on. So you couldn't have monopoly numbers in there. It needed to be numbers that made sense, because it was for the purpose of a reality check.
Well,
So
that
that's all I
seems to
can
me-
say to you.
Yeah, that seems
right
to be,
now.
could be eaten up just by a software update.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, to me, that's nothing,
Yes.
that doesn't really jive with
Doesn't
either.
go very far.
500,000 is like
Annual,
drop in the bucket.
annually.
Yeah, annually, so every year.
Did you say they
Much
generated all this
This, a
Yeah,
lot,
you
a
say
lot
they
of this came
always-
out of them.
from them?
Yeah.
Need software
Yeah.
updates?
These are the ideas
They put it together.
When
They
we
put
need a
these off.
software
Yeah, there's a lot of,
Oh, we better.
Got it more, some good stuff.
there's a lot of,
With
there's
at least a
a,
willing attitude.
For the-
there's a lot of,
Yeah, sorry, go
What?
ahead. There's a lot.
there's a lot of actual, I'm gonna use the word generosity, but I know that'll land not softly, but, there was a lot of olive branches offered in this, so we were surprised.
Yeah, yeah.
We need to read it more closely.
So up to 500,000 or available?
Please don't, we've not gotten to that point
We're
yet, and
not
I
at that
just
level.
don't,
Well,
I don't wanna
This is
get
an important
lost.
point that you want to bring back to
Yeah.
them.
I agree, yes,
This is
yes,
all
yes.
they're doing.
But I just don't want us to get off down a rabbit trail about how much money they're gonna give for capital investments and miss the big picture.
So,
What the capital venture,
But we
let
just
them
wanna-
decide
it
how
works
is it
and
gonna
how we
work.
move forward.
And they will be
That's all.
transparent,
It's-
right? I want them to be
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
transparent.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Steve. you
I was just gonna say, yeah, and what we did with this, what you're gonna see, and you've got it in front of you, is, I just wanted to do a reasonableness test. Does this make sense as a starting point? It's not a forecast,
Right.
it's not a commitment, they were, you know, we put $500,000, but, that's not our commitment, because we don't know yet, we haven't worked out the details,
Yeah.
that's fine, but I wanted to say, okay, is it reasonable that within time frame? Talking to their CFO, he said, I asked him, I said, when do you think the numbers you've done, and again, they're estimates when you could get the operation to a break even. He said about 5 or 6 years. I said, let me just take that out and just see what it looks like, see if it looks reasonable. It looked reasonable to me.
Has Brian Bauer been
In
schooling the
every
same?
step of the way.
So
He's
he's
been-
sent this and read it?
Yes.
Just because it's, you know, just wanting to make sure that, you know, we are, I mean, they are fair. I mean, this is a fair assumptions that we're.
Yeah.
That's the message I wanted you to hear,
So-
was it kind of surprised.
We don't
There-
wanna go in
there
the
are
dark
some-
trail and
There
then
are some
find out.
other ways they could have constructed this that would have been actually to their advantage and not ours. And this is a bit to our advantage, considering some of the other ways that it could be.
It might not have been so receptive though,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
if they would have just tried to
Agreed.
do it
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
no, agreed, but
Yeah.
it just at least says they're coming, they're
Feasible
actually
and
coming to the
so
table
comfortable.
with good intentions.
And realistic expectations too. I mean, that, you know, I think they
Well,
have
and we gotta be
realistic
realistic all the way around on this
Yeah,
thing.
it's realistic.
Yeah, if we're not, we're gonna get in trouble.
So, and then so the capital investments are here because the way that those investments happen is, let's just choose an example, let's say it's buying an MRPD unit. Because the district is the owner of the building and the owner of the assets, Overlake would provide funds, so the dollars to us, and those dollars would then go to pay for, so they're passed through, but they end up landing on your dollars in, on your revenue in, so just get them out so that they aren't doubly recognized as income. So once they're out, then that final net income, if that's a loss, then they're going to share in that loss. If it's a gain, they'll share in the gain. So, gonna flip open a worksheet, but just the presumptions on the worksheet, and it's actually the second piece of paper that you have, is, so using, we just said we have all of 2018, let's use that as if it was 2019. Just use that as a starting point, and then just say an adjusted net income that improves $130,000 a year. And Steve chose that because that would get them to break even the 5 to 7 years from now, which is
Yeah.
what their analysis predicts. So again, this was a reality check.
How many years did you say?
5 to 7.
5 to 7 years.
This is the other presumption, this is what we've been talking about already. It has a presumption that Overlake invests $500,000 a year in some type of a capital improvement, that it really does fall under the presumption. And there's also the presumption that anything that was given to us for capital improvement is fully spent. So it truly was passing on through. And then, there wasn't a presumption required for excess tax revenue, because Steve's able to calculate that out with, some certainty. some
Yeah, we
level of
have.
certainty.
Yeah.
And
What if the management services fee is $1 if they're so confident that they can make money or break even? So
Are you-
maybe we ought to just give a management services fee symbolically as $1.
I'm not sure that comes to the table in good faith to do that. We actually are hiring the.
No, and that's the one thing we don't have
foresters.
is a management
Yeah,
services.
but that
fee.
is-
Aren't they a for-profit organization?
No,
Or they're,
No, they're a
they're
nonprofit.
501c3.
oh, they are.
Yeah.
Overlake is.
They're a profit-driven nonprofit in their own words.
As I read it.
Not profit,
That's
not
what we
for
have.
profit.
They're not
Um,
for profit. They're nonprofit.
They're
It's
501c3.
I know, but I can't get to it.
Yep. You can look them up, you can see all their financials because
I
they
thought they
are.
were for profit.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're technically a nonprofit, but they
Yeah.
call themselves a profit-driven nonprofit.
Every nonprofit is.
a profit-driven.
Nonprofit. No margin, no
We need to
mission.
make money
You don't
somewhere.
stay in business if you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing business.
Okay, so let me try.
Takes money.
Earlier, when you were talking about capital, you mentioned recruiting.
Mhm.
Recruiting is not a capital investment, is it?
Yes, it is.
How is that a capital investment? I never heard of that sort of thing.
Well, if you consider your employees human, that's capital. So if you consider those a resource, that's how you then would get to that.
Part of the capital.
Yeah, that top part is.
Yeah, we're gonna have to scroll up and down,
Yeah.
you know, to see.
Okay.
can't see.
Another sheet.
Oh, you said,
Yeah, so this is a second sheet that you have, and it, but it
Oh, I see.
honestly,
Commissioner, here you
Yeah.
go.
but it honestly might be easier to follow on the screen.
you
just-
can see
Yeah,
that it's
might
just,
be.
Just because there'll be some pointing, because there's a lot of cells
Yeah.
here. But let me let you, do you
really
wanna walk?
Yeah.
oh, okay, now, the font is, okay.
The mouse. So, this is, again, this is our audited middle loss in 18. And I just said, okay, 19, I'm not forecasting, I'm just presuming a loss, and 20, because I was like, okay, let's be conservative,
Thank
it'll
you.
probably happen
Yeah, much
sometime in 20, mid-year. I don't think you can make a lot of changes. I want to assume you wouldn't make a lot of changes. They probably can and cannot do this.
I'm kind of lost here. Audited change in that position. You're saying we're gonna lose $650,000, or we lost it last year?
We lost it last year. I am not
Okay.
forecasting forward at all.
Okay.
I'm making very conservative assumptions, saying, okay, what if we won't lose that amount this year? We probably won't lose that amount next year, but I want it to be conservative. I didn't want to,
Okay.
paint a too rosy of a picture. So it was one of those, worried finance guys. And then 21, you start to decrease your loss by 130,000 a year, and then in 2025, break even on an audited financial statement basis.
These are all hypotheticals, correct?
Hmm?
These are all hypotheticals, or,
I am not predicting that, that's what I'm saying. So am I predicting that, Emma?
that's what I'm asking.
No, what did I say? Did I say yes or no?
You're not predicting
I am
it.
not predicting
Okay.
it, correct, yes.
Just
It's
wanna
just
know
that
what
it
the
is-
number,
This,
what the
and
number's
again,
coming, okay.
this was just, is this model reasonable? Okay, do I think it looks reasonable? And firstly, do I think it looks reasonable that in 6 years or 5 to 6 years, they can get to break even? Yeah, I do. I think they can, adding services, economies of scale, all that kind of, those kind of things that happen in a consolidation or a management operation. Yeah, I think they can do that.
So under this,
Uh-huh.
not predicted,
You got it,
Scenario.
David. Yeah.
you're saying that we have to eat that cash until 2025, the losses, right? We have to eat
I'm
the-
going to say, no, I am not. I am not.
Okay.
Okay.
It's
So,
not predicted.
next line is we take out the tax revenue in excess of debt service. That's around 600,000. It grows because our tax revenue grows about 2% a year.
So it's that extra that you get every year that you're gonna use.
Right, the tax revenue that does not go to pay our bondholders.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
So why does it go down to 21? And then it starts going up again? Bounces around.
Yeah, because it is our bond, that's the way our bonds are structured, the amortization schedule is structured. That's off the amortization schedule. So when you take that out, you got even, a bigger loss, again, that's going down. Then this is
Oh, I
overlays
see.
hypothetical capital investment. They're getting kind of credit for that because they're investing in this facility, this community and such. So-
investing or maintaining or both?
Well, if you,
No, not maintaining, just
Investing.
capital.
yeah, it's
Just
capital, so it's
okay.
investing, you're buying something
That's what I
new,
know.
something new, or if you need. Okay, and then, after that credit, what's the adjusted net income? And then this is the transfer of, let's see,
Transfer
let's
of
get-
the loss?
Transfer of a loss, if the district has a loss, overlay then transfers half of that back to us. They pay, so we lose, let's say we lose $100,000 in the district. Overlay makes up half of that, they give us 50. $50,000.
So if we lose, it's a
That's what-
50-50 deal. If we are losing, they're gonna help
Right,
pay for
and
it.
if.
'Cause they're running
If
it.
we make money,
It's part of the deal.
Yeah, that's what it.
if we make money, then Overlake gets half of it, the district gets half of it. So there's a
Give and take.
risk reward sharing in there.
Financially. And at what point does, this is kind of, if the district gets to an income just above break even,
Okay, $103,000 on a $40 million operation is just about break even.
so at that point, then there is not
That sharing of loss or profit, everybody's the same. So, you know,
they go out here and, okay, they make $300,000 and they get a positive cash flow and such out of it. They don't transfer.
Here's a question I have with regard to their capital, so-called capital investment on a yearly basis. Sorry.
okay.
Can you be a little crafty in accounting and switch a little bit of this and switch a little bit of that back and forth? Because, you know, instead of leasing, you know, what we do on a lot of our leasing, we found it better to lease than purchase.
Yeah,
Couldn't they just say, well, we decided to purchase this year, and that way we're not, I mean, you know what I'm saying? They could probably juggle those figures to really say that's what I'm concerned about. They could
Yeah.
juggle the
Now-
figures to say that they made 500,000, and look at what we're doing for you. And it really doesn't come
The
out.
500,000 is only credited to them if there is here is cash for you to go spend on
So-
whatever, and so you have to have a trail of cash coming from them to us for the purpose of, in order to get to that credit stage. Yeah.
So I'm just
Yes,
saying they
yes.
could switch all the leases that we have now in place, which makes sense to us because we can, I'm just thinking about how you juggle accounting. And I've seen it happen so often, believe me.
Well,
It lasts
yeah.
12 years.
now,
Yeah.
okay, but let's kind of step back a little.
Right.
I'm not saying you trust everybody implicitly, David. You
Yeah.
do have a seat on the governing board, and I think, you know, that's going to be important to have people, your representatives, district representatives on the governing board with some sophistication, so they can look at this type of thing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you hear horror stories of, you know, entities taking advantage of each other. So you have to
Not
kind
only that, I
of
think-
trust but verify, isn't that the old Cold War thing? I mean,
Perseverance.
Yeah.
Trust but verify.
It's intriguing to me, because I know a lot of dentists and physicians where their bookkeepers pull money out, and the next thing they know, they've lost more funds than they expected.
Yeah, and that's,
And you know, some of those businesses where you
Oh,
bring
yeah.
someone in,
yeah.
so I
But-
think that's a
Remember,
legitimate
that's
question.
why we have Moss Adams coming in
Yeah.
as an auditor, we have the state coming in, and look, and it is astounding
And
how
we
to go
actually,
out at receipt
Well, I
level.
don't think it
And
would be
when,
illegal to juggle the books a little, to put more on capital versus, you know,
And that's happened.
They just have to-
Yeah.
so that's
Abide by the
what
rules.
I'm,
if you
so
were,
always gotta be looking over our shoulders at this.
I
if
think
you
that's why the affiliation board has to be pretty
Sorry,
clear.
but if you do remember,
I do remember.
no,
That's
no,
my
no,
problem.
you don't remember that.
Because some numbers will
When we
remain
first
vacant.
talked about
Okay.
the structure of the district and the expenses, one of the items I put in was a quarterly audit by an independent CPA firm. Because you're gonna have fewer people watching. And I said, let every quarter get someone in, a CPA firm, that can do an audit, to say, okay, let's do a controls audit, to make sure the proper controls in place, and nothing is going funny, so to speak, it's not funny. So, because you're not gonna have, you know, right now you have a group of 3 or 4 people in finance. We're not gonna have it, but let's bring in some experts every quarter to look at that.
Well, I still, what does that do to our current auditor situation with Moss Adams? I presume the Overlake has their own auditors, we have our own auditors. Will this replace those auditors with respect to this organization?
Gene, I don't know. I mean, you know, I mean, there are a whole lot of CPA firms out there that operate under the same rules and that are very good. District can choose whoever they want. I mean, I'm not recommending that.
Commissioner Pollard, were you
Yeah.
asking that because you were thinking that there's a value of declaring, should it be one way or another, that we intentionally stay with Moss Adams because of history?
I guess I would prefer an independent auditor rather than continuing with Moss Adams, but I wanted to hear an opinion on that.
There are 2 thoughts on that. About, let's talk about, you know, do you change auditors? One is, Moss Adams knows this, and they know how we operate.
With the collaborative?
No, we don't. And, no, and, you know, it would be easier and more efficient for them to do. The other is, you might want a new set of eyes on it periodically. So, you've got both those. It's a management decision.
Yeah, I have read the literature that says that you really should change your auditor every 5 years. We haven't changed our auditor in 15 years, have we?
No, we've changed it probably in maybe 12 or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Preferably a new set of eyes.
But then I've read that, you know, and CPA firms have a very strong internal, what I call peer review process, especially the big firms. Now, if you had Joe Blow, or it's a 2-person entity that's maybe doing your audit, I'd worry about that. A firm like Moss Adams, where you've got all up and down the West Coast, one of the biggest ones in healthcare, I would not worry about that. Now, you can bring up Arthur Anderson, and that's a whole another, but what Arthur Anderson did was, they got into consulting. Consulting began to run their audit program, and they got greedy, and their audit people looked the other way. I don't worry about Moss Adams looking the other way. But again, that's kind of a philosophical
Even
discussion.
though we don't have to do a certificate of need, would there be any advantage in having the state auditor look at this at some point?
The state auditors,
Wendy, Troy.
will.
the state auditors will be in, because they're public funds.
Yeah.
Between you and me, there's a higher level of expertise in a Moss Adams than there is in the state auditor's office.
I don't, you know, just.
Ernst and Young is a good one too.
No, they're all good. I mean, Ernst and Young,
My concern
Waterhouse.
isn't whether we get audited, because it really doesn't matter. If they follow the principles, it's not a big deal. What I'm telling you is that everybody can pass these audits with a little tricky accounting procedures. And that's what I'm concerned about with 500,000, that's gonna go by the wayside somewhere. And it's gonna be perceived as capital and
Improvement when it
capital
wasn't.
investment.
Yeah, but it's
And
not
they'll
there.
say,
Yeah.
but there's,
Yeah.
No capital.
but it really
I've
isn't.
seen many corporations have done that.
Yeah, what do you?
I don't know,
I just hear
I
about
just
it.
know that in the past,
He's playing devil's
I have
advocate.
seen
He does this
in
a lot.
this hospital, use operating funds, use capital investment for operating expenses in the past. And, you know, that is something that I don't, it was all good according to
Yeah.
the audits. And so, I'm just saying,
So
the
you-
500,000 is not a guarantee that they're really going to put
Yeah.
in $500,000.
So you're looking for some type of
You want-
a keeping it above
Yeah.
board, so there's clarity and visibility for
Right,
everybody.
I don't,
Yeah.
Well, then let's make sure
Not a
that
makeup
that
number.
You
falls
want a
into
high-
the affiliation board, that any capital investments need to go through that group
I
for
agree.
approval.
We need a
Because-
watchdog over
Yeah.
that.
Right, because I think there's also, I think that's where the needs gets confirmed. You know, what are the
Yeah.
needs as opposed to, this could be a great way to make extra money,
Needs versus
discretionary.
discretion.
Because that's where the community health needs assessment
And
is
that's
gonna
where the
be kind of
community's gonna
policed out
ask
of.
too.
So that
They're gonna wanna know.
any investment funds need to come through there, I mean, just as an idea.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean,
I
I'm
think-
just posing it based on my
I hear you.
experience.
I hear you.
And
I think what
something I would worry about.
we've gone to is, it's going to be something that requires some thought and planning, is the internal controls and the controls this board has over the spending and the investment, because, big dollars, so.
I
Yes.
would like to point out that we are after 6 o'clock. So we need to decide.
We are actually at a great point that we can wrap this conversation up.
Mhm.
So I think the next, let me just go here and say that just the next slide was gonna say, there's still so much to do. There's still so much to do. So the one final thing though that I did, because there is still so much to do, and each time we get together, I mean, there's kind of this growing richness of information for us. I just wanted, so Skip was very helpful in putting together a display that I just wanted to have a chance to show you guys, and this felt like a better time than in a board meeting to do it. And this is just the commissioner transitions, because we've got just a lot happening in the next few months. So I just wanted to keep everybody on the same page here. So through the elections process, there are 3 different of your seats that have been as part of the election process. And so just looking currently, I think the one that is so unique over here is position number 5, which Jen is currently sitting in. And because the position was by appointment, so I'm talking and I'm glancing at Skip every now and then because he's gonna correct me if I say something wrong. Because it was by appointment, that it is unique in that as soon as the election is certified on November 26th, that at certification is when the commissioner who ran for the seat, which is Kevin, that he takes his position. He takes his seat November 26th.
But he must be sworn in first.
He's sworn
Not
in,
certified,
so
but
his-
sworn in.
Agreed,
Must
yeah,
take
so
you.
his, and that's already, we've already had the conversation with him, so we've educated him ahead of time, just because it's just a matter of certification. So he's aware of that, he knows the path for certification, and he knows that he'll actually have an accountability starting November 26th, as soon as the oath is done. Jen will be back, because she was elected under position 4, but she can't return until after January 1. So, so our January 9th board meeting, she'll be back there. And then position number 1, the outcome of the election between Commissioner Norris and Commissioner Pollard. So, and that one is a more traditional path because it was by election. But, and then in January, so even the fact that Kevin will have done his oath when he came on in November, he'll need to do it again at January 1.
Correct.
When everybody is together again. So that's kind of laid out. Just want to make sure everybody, again, alignment, make sure everybody understands the same and who's where and what have you.
Could you remind me, the affiliated board, how many members will be on that?
It hasn't yet been completely determined. The thought right now is 5 or 6.
Okay, the question is, what is a quorum? And, you know, what does it take to pass a motion or something? Because I think we need to be protected there, so that we're not in the minority and have no power.
Yes.
Of the
And
affiliation.
the ideas that have surfaced there so far is things like a supermajority, not a simple majority, but a supermajority.
Oh, I heard you
Or-
mention that word.
Or having weight added to normalize the votes.
Yeah,
But-
okay, well, you're
but yes,
looking out for
absolutely.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
keeping sensitive to
All
that.
right.
Skip, did I need to say anything differently about the seat adjustments?
No, and this has all been verified, so I contacted Oscar Ray over at NORSC, and I
Okay.
contacted the King County folks, and so
Wondering
they've all
about that,
got to
yes.
know me. So
Secretary
it's
of
just,
State also has.
yeah, it's just a little unique in the sense that Commissioner Carter ran for a position that she wasn't sitting in. Otherwise, she'd have taken the oath right away. But she has to vacate that position for that short period of time because of the statutory requirement.
Oh, that was my question, okay, yeah, I know she won't be here.
She
So
will
she's
not be on the
vacating that,
board
yeah.
until she gets appointed to the
Because
position she
she
ran
was
in, which
moved out of that.
takes effect January. She can take the oath prior to that according to the statute. Up to
However-
10 days prior to the selected date of assuming the office, so 10 days prior to January 1, she can take the oath.
Hypothetically, if I were to resign, she could then take the oath.
Well, if you were to resign, there would be an individual appointed to position number 4.
Well, she's in position, you're in position 4.
No, she's in position 5,
Somebody has
Commissioner
to
Young.
Oh,
is-
you're in 5,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's really critical to, remember this is Commissioner Young's position 5 that she
Mm-hmm.
took because that was vacated prior to the election, and therefore it had to be appointed. If Commissioner Young had resigned a couple weeks later, then that position would have come up for an election.
But couldn't Commissioner Hogley move to position 4, because that's where he ran on?
No, Commissioner Hogley
No.
ran for and can only serve in position 5, that's who he was elected by the voters.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, okay.
Yeah.
That's why he was
So
on
it-
5. I don't know what
Now
I was
you see
thinking
him all
4.
I redid the
Yeah,
display.
it's just like,
So we can all keep
Position
up.
5, correct.
like a
Position
shelving.
5, that's right.
That's
Commissioner Hogley will be holding position 5, Commissioner Carter will hold
So
position
if
4,
you're-
and position 1 will be determined once the election's over.
So
If
could-
he
could-
resigned, then somebody will be appointed, is what you're saying.
I'm sorry?
If he
When he
resigned
was
prior,
resigned, someone would be appointed.
someone will be appointed.
Correct. And they would only be appointed until the end of
Wow.
the year,
Yeah.
because position 4
And there may not
is
be
gonna
a
be.
meeting.
Could be Commissioner Carter appointed.
Okay, it
Oh,
is 6:08.
All yours.
We have a meeting at 6:30.
We better eat fast or?
Yeah.
Dinner over there.
Okay, so we're adjourned.